Marie Dolma is a French-Tibetan artist who grew up with her Tibetan father and French mother. Though currently based in New York City, she was born and raised in France, where she earned her master's degree in art from the École nationale supérieure des beaux-arts de Paris. Growing up, Marie Dolma was instinctively drawn towards the arts, of her own accord, though her parents' enthusiasm and openness bolstered her along the way. Following her chosen path, she took art classes in high school, attended art school in Paris, and eventually made it her life's career.
Along with my French education, I think that my connection to Buddhist philosophy and Tibetan culture through my father came to shape my relationship to land and nature the way it is, and considerations on life. And also, I guess the fact that I've never been to Tibet myself, it is somehow a land that I have internalized. And I started to paint a lot of mountains when I was studying art in school without really knowing why. Then something I realized was it was not really about the subject itself of mountains, but it was a way for me to integrate part of my culture. Without really thinking, I was painting repetitively a lot of mountains, and finally understood that it was a way for me to explore a part of my identity.
When asked what art means to her, Marie immediately answered that art is something she simply cannot live without. For Marie, the purpose is in reflection, allowing for further exploration of every part of both her own self and the external world. Getting to that place also provides her with a sense of control over time, specifically the slowing down of time in an accelerated world so focused on immediate gratification. Perception is an important part of Marie's pieces. She wants viewers to see and understand her art from all its different angles. Each person's interpretation and experience with her work, then, is unique to that person at that moment of time in that place. There are many overlapping and underlapping layers to her art, so it is up to the viewer to determine what they see and take away from her pieces.
Well, I was thinking that because I was working on all these details on the painting so closely, and then moving around the painting and seeing it at different moments of the day, I realized my mind was totally changing. The eyes of the Mona Lisa. It's like she's following you, but somehow, yeah, you see her from a different angle. If you're on the left or in front of her, she's still looking at you. And I experienced something like this with this painting. I was seeing the perspective I was trying to make, but working on the canvas frontally, and suddenly realized that it was working totally differently just looking at it under another angle. And I thought that, yeah, that's how art should be. A painting is not just something you have to look at frontally, actually.
In these pieces, we can see how the mineral gem formations have an appearance similar to star and space patterns. This artist is drawing out the similarities between subjects generally viewed as being of opposite worlds, the literal earth and sky. By drawing together contradictions, she's able to minimize distance and connect the unconnectable, demonstrating how art imitates life.
I was really interested in fungi and cosmology, and at some point I realized that, like, using paint this way, by pouring, trying with different dilutions, um, I could really create some kind of landscape looking piece, but that would be contained in something that was not necessarily the frame of a canvas, but here it was in glass petri dish. And so I could suddenly, just by the shape of the petri dish, it would figure either an unknown planet, but also remind us of all this micro world and all these cultures of bacteria and that are growing, constantly everywhere. The studio space is quite a sanctuary. It's always hard to have people getting in, because it's the space that is just my own, where I spend most of my time, and even when I'm not actually painting, there is all this process also of getting into the work. So I'm kind of secretive about that space. Generally, I work without preparatory sketches. So I just start to work on the canvas directly. I have generally a blurry idea at first, and then as I work, well, things on top of another is really layered. And in the end, I have these worlds all created that are what I try to convey is generally a sense of movement, of space, of something that is out of scale that you cannot really identify if it's small or big. My work is somehow always navigating in between the macro and the micro worlds. And they are in the end very similar in their essential forms. Uh, and then in my work, by blurring or voluntarily eluding the sense of scale, it reveals the interconnections and similarities between these two worlds that seem really far apart, but actually having a common essential form and complex interconnections that look similar.
At the moment, Marie grows plants and flowers to inject some magic into her daily routine, as well as to keep herself in a creative headspace. This activity reminds Marie that though we as individuals are but small specks of existence, life as a collective is constantly growing and changing, and is reliant upon each one of us to foster it onward. This not only grounds her as an artist, but inspires her to keep creating. To Marie, the art speaks for itself. There is no one denoted meaning she wants viewers to take away from her pieces. Rather, she considers it of utmost importance that people find themselves within her art. If the art speaks to oneself, then the job is done. After all, she says, art is subjective.